A split call on behalf of the Labor Party. I call 5 minutes, Pottle Williams.
Kia ora ana, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And that is a really good note to start my contribution, Mr. Speaker, because I do want to respond to some of the comments that the Minister has made around family violence. Much of what the Minister has said I agree with. In fact, most of what she has said I agree with. I agree that family violence is a huge, huge problem in this country, and I agree that many people in New Zealand will concur that dealing with the issue of gangs and gang families will go some way to dealing with the issue of family violence. However, when you have the situation where you have over 100,000 family violence call-outs by police in a year, the gang portion of that statistic is minor, is minute compared to the impacts that it has for every single community in this country, whether they are low socio-economic or whether they are the leafy suburbs. Every community is impacted by family violence. And while this measure goes some way to addressing a portion of it, here we are yet again debating the use of targeting resources to our particular group versus taking some universal steps to address the issue across the country. 100,000 family violence call-outs by police. That would mean that there were at least 95,000 families who aren't gang affiliated, who are still going to be impacted by family violence, who the measures that the Minister has announced today will not touch. They will not touch. There are 62,000 family violence investigations where at least one child is resident or present in a home where violence has occurred. The measures that have been announced today will not impact 60,000 of those children. The Minister did touch on a very important point, and that is about the trauma that is experienced by these children. It may not necessarily be that they are experiencing the violence themselves, in a sense being physically abused. The fact that they are in a home where violence is present, even if they are not physically abused, is traumatic enough for them to be damaged and to have huge impacts on their future life outcomes, negative impacts. And the Minister also, I want to reiterate, was also the Minister that reformed the family court, and the impacts of that reform have had a negative impact on family violence. It's now harder to obtain a protection order to keep yourself safe. The reductions to the threshold for legal aid means that fewer and fewer women in particular are able to obtain those protection orders. How are they able to keep themselves and their children safe when the key legal mechanism with which to do that is withdrawn from them because of changes that Minister made to the family court? So also included in that was a reduction in access for family court counselling, where many issues for families were resolved before they became major concerns for the country. While I concur with much of what the Minister says, yet again, this country is headed down a very, very dark passageway for when we are dealing with targeting small groups of people when the problem is so epidemic. And I wasn't going to speak specifically about family violence. I was going to address some other issues of trauma which exist in my community in Christchurch East. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, but I must respond to what the Minister has said in this regard. Family violence is a scourge on our society. When 100,000 incidents are reported, and that is only a fifth of what occurs. We need to be looking away from targeting and doing some specific work with those NGOs, with the refuges, with police, with child, youth and family to contain this epidemic and not just look at specific and small targeted areas. Mr Speaker, I think that is not a good use of our taxpayers' funding. Thank you.